Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of FFPC Insider Access right now. My name is Eric Balkman, at Eric Balkman on the X, EricBalkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship at myffpc.com. Want to let everybody know that we got some pretty cool stuff going on at the FFPC right now. The FFPC Dynasty Leagues and Empire Leagues have plenty of orphans to go around. MyFFPC.com is where to go to grab some of those. Those entry fees normally range between $77 and $5,000, but right now you can get some pretty good deals on those teams at myffpc.com. For as little as $1, sometimes less than $1. You'll know what I'm talking about if you go to the Dynasty Orphans page. Just go to myffpc.com, click on Dynasty Orphans. That'll bring up everything that we have currently available on there right now. The Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament has been live for the last few weeks. Check it out at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. The grand prize is going to be $40,000. Just cost you $125 to enter, but hurry because that tournament shuts down when the NFL draft starts. So it's only going to go all the way up to the start of the NFL draft, which, by the way, we got some breaking news on the NFL draft coming up here in just the next few minutes. The Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament also available. $35 entry fee still gets you eligible for a $10,000 grand prize at myffpc.com. And don't forget the Big Gorilla. We had live drafts kick off on Monday there, so you can draft with a 60-second clock or a 2-hour clock or a 6-hour clock, whatever you want to do. MyFFPC.com is where to go. $350 is the entry fee. We're going to give you a $50 discount for every third team you get. $1 million grand prize. The 7 Bananas promo is right now, where depending upon how many times you get that 7 pick randomly in a row, you'll keep getting free teams that will escalate to $2,000 entry, $10,000 entry, and then if you get it 4 times in a row or 5 times in a row, beg your pardon, you'll get that free Jungle Safari for 4 or 50 grand, whatever you like. The Early Rampage tournament going on right now, $25,000 first prize for that. So if you're playing in the Big Gorilla, you're essentially getting in 2 tournaments with the same team for the price of 1 entry fee. Sign up now, myffpc.com. And if that's a little bit too rich for you, but you still want to play some high-stakes fantasy football, check it out. The Baby Gorilla, for the first time ever this year, myffpc.com is where to go. $100,000 grand prize at just $125 entry. Where do you go? myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and click the notification bell so you will know the next time we go live. More coming up on that at the end of the show. Want to welcome in tonight's guest co-host. He is the man, the myth, the legend. He is the fantasy lead over at the Huddle, thehuddle.com. He also does work for FF Today and Fantasy Points. You have seen him draft in the FFPC Pros versus Joe's numerous times, and he's been on this show as well. 2.5 decades of playing high-stakes fantasy football. He has never lost money on any season. Certainly a streak to be proud of. Don't forget about the Fantasy Football Diehards podcast that he does, and carrying the moniker of the 2020 Kings Classic champ. You follow him on the X. His name is Doug Orth there, and his name is Doug Orth in real life. Doug, welcome in. Good evening, sir.
How are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you.
So I can't remember if we talked about this last time. You might have told me in an email. Do you referee kids sports or high school sports or anything like that?
Yep, I've been a basketball official now for 11 years.
And it's just basketball that you do?
That's correct.
Okay, what's the wildest story that you can tell us to lead things off on the show? Could be an interaction with a coach, a player, the worst ones of all, the parents. Has there been anything that has been so crazy that you're like, when it happened to you, you're like, this will never, ever happen again as long as I referee?
Well, two come immediately to mind. I know my girlfriend Carla's would much appreciate the one I'm going to tell here. I can share 2 of them real quick with you if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. The first one I'll share with you is Carla was with me one of these days years ago when I was doing some travel AAU stuff here in Connecticut, and she was sitting in the crowd with a couple of parents from some of the kids out there. And anyway, so I make a foul call. So I make some kind of call, jump ball call, foul call, whatever, and I yell it across the court because we don't tend to move on those in those non-board games. Mm-hmm. And anyway, the communication was bad with the table or something, and make it a long story short, one of the parents talks to the other parents and says, "What's he doing?" And the other parent said, "Oh, he's just making up his own rules." and so then Carla got the bright idea a week later, and I still have this shirt to this day. She went out and made a shirt saying, "I'm a basketball official. I make up my own rules." That's one. This one's a lot less funny and a lot more sad, and I can keep it PG. It's just sad. So this is a lot of this stuff happens in travel AAU games. That seems to be where the tensions are the highest, I guess. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm in Massachusetts doing a game. This is probably 7-8 years ago at this point. And I have to specify the race of the kids here to tell a story. So there's a white kid and a black kid that are chasing the ball out of bounds. The white kid drops the N-word to the black kid as he's doing it. So I tee him up, right? So next dead ball, I'm standing next to the coach when he says, "Oh, I completely agree with your call. What exactly did he say?" And I said, "Well, he said the N-word." He said, "Oh man, you don't call a technical on that. They say that to each other all the time." Not on my court, they don't.
Yeah. That foul. That I was not expecting that. That is wild stuff. From Doug Orth, high school basketball referee and fantasy football expert. As we get into the fantasy football portion of the program tonight, Doug and I are going to go around the NFL in this first segment. We'll take a breather for about 90 seconds coming up in about 35 minutes or so. And then we will get into the rookie report. We'll talk dynasty. Quite frankly, we'll talk about redraft value for some of these rookies coming up. Emmett Johnson, Malachi Fields, Eli Stowers, Garrett Nussmeier will be discussed there. And we'll also get into, in the final segment, if you're looking for some targets and fades in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament and Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, check it out. We're going to go through RJ Harvey, Zay Flowers, Tucker Kraft, Patrick Mahomes, and so much more before we get you out of here at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Okay, let's kick it off. Doug and Kevin Patullo, the much maligned Kevin Patullo, who was the OC for Philadelphia this past year, reassigned by Nick Sirianni after the season ends. But now the Miami Dolphins have hired him as their pass game coordinator. I bring this up because there are certain things, Doug, that trigger me in the offseason of like, you know what, maybe this is a team to stay away from. So let's just kind of recap the major moves Miami has done as far as coaching goes. They have hired Jeff Hafley, who is a defensive guy and who wants to get bigger and maybe a little bit slower, right? They have hired Bobby Slowick, a guy who looked like he was the next big thing for offensive coordinators and maybe a future head coach, who kind of flamed out in Houston. He's the new offensive coordinator. And now they hire Kevin Patullo as the pass game coordinator. Kind of, and I can't remember where I read this, but somebody, I think it was Roto World actually, said that they're putting together quite the underwhelming collection of coaches in Miami right now. And to me, I look at it like, I don't know if Tua Tagovailoa is going to be their quarterback. Quite frankly, I don't know how much of a difference it makes. Unless it's maybe somebody like Malik Willis, I might have some interest there. But the fact that Achane is going so high, we don't know if Tyreek Hill is even going to play football anywhere in 2026. Jaden Waddle had some great opportunities in front of him last year, couldn't take advantage when Hill was out. And quite frankly, there's not a lot to like at tight end. This might be one of those offenses I'm just fading completely this year. Is there any redeeming qualities that you see when you look at what the Miami offense is going to be capable of in 2026?
Well, I think as far as this news nugget is concerned, I'm not really concerned about what Patullo is going to do or not do for the offense so much as I'm concerned by what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Who's the quarterback? What's the offensive line like? What's the offensive philosophy. Let's say they bring in Malik Willis in free agency. Are they going to be a predominantly run-heavy team? That type of stuff. So as far as Patullo being the pass game coordinator, I think people are going to make more of that. It seems like they already are making more out of that than what it actually is. He was the Eagles pass game coordinator for 4 years before moving into the OC chair for the first time last year. And like many first-time play callers, he wasn't ready for the job and didn't adjust well when defensive coordinators adjusted to him. Again, he's the second in command as far as the offense, I would think, is concerned. So he's going to be contributing ideas in meetings, but it's going to be Bobby Slowick who's going to be running the offense. I would say as far as the Eagles pass game concepts, they weren't that great. So I don't know how we can see this or anything that Miami's done so far this offseason as anything but a net negative, because I think Mike McDaniel had, for all of his quirks and whatnot, I think he was probably maximizing the offense when it was healthy.
Which makes sense, right? Because you think about where they went from Mike McDaniel and everything he was able to squeeze out from Achane, from Darren Waller, from Tua Tagovailoa. And now you're going to these again, I think underwhelming is the best way to put it. It does give me a lot of pause in drafting. And you say, well, Balky, what about Achane? Because he seemed to be whatever you call it, I guess bulletproof for lack of a better term last year with a bad offense, with a team that, very rarely could establish the run and get him going. But Achane still made it happen through the air, right? I mean, he had a fantastic fantasy season. I think the thing that gives me pause is, can he do it 2 years in a row? And he's running back 4 at the 110 in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Draft right now, which, by the way, that's courtesy of Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani at Fantasy Mojo, fantasymojo.com. Get a subscription there if you're playing in the FFPC. So I like Achane, Doug. It's just a question of, do I like him at that price? He's going right around Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, and Ashton Genty. Play on 3 teams whose offenses I believe more in than Miami's this season.
Yep. I'll sign off on that.
Speaking of Ashton Genty, Clint Kubiak, the new head coach for the Raiders, said that Genty can't fix the running game on his own this year, which makes sense because, for what he was able to do in yards after contact last year, it was insane. I mean, I think he was just short of 1,000 yards, I want to say, but it was like 800 or 900 where it was after first contact. I mean, he had no offensive line. And I know their injuries had something to do with that. And certainly Pete Carroll, who came in with his son as the offensive line coach, who just proved incapable of handling those guys properly, whether that's on him or whether it's because of injuries. It's more likely both, right? Now you get Kubiak in there, a guy who, remember back in, what was it? Was it 2024? When he was the OC for New Orleans, and they put up like 40-some points in week 1 and 40-some points in week 2, and everybody's talking about, it's Kubiak. He's going to be the next head coach. And then that offense kind of went down the toilet. Injuries had something to do with that as well. But then he goes to Seattle, wins a Super Bowl there, and quite frankly, won a Super Bowl without the 1B in the backfield, kind of the 1A in the backfield all year in Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah.
And he never really had a reliable number 2 threat. Next to Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he got a lot out of A.J. Barner. It was pretty impressive there. But now he goes to Las Vegas. It's hard for me not to get excited about Ashton Genty. I drafted at Caesars this past weekend and just outside of Louisville for the KFFSC Super Sunday Sweet 16. And I saw him going. In fact, I think I took him at the 112 in one draft, but I saw him going in the late first, early second round. People are definitely bullish on Genty with this new regime coming into place. Obviously, you got Spytech running things. Brady's now a part owner with Mark Davis. And then you have Kubiak now as the head coach. Is that enough for you to get on board for what was kind of, I wouldn't say it was an abysmal season last year, Doug, but Genty let us down probably because of our own fault, right? We pumped him up into something, and he has this good season. It was underwhelming to us because of where we were drafting him. But now this year, you look at what he's capable of with this new coaching staff. I don't know, man. I'm fairly excited for Genty.
Well, let me get to the headline of what you said about Genty not being able to fix the running game on his own first, and then I'm going to go on for a little while. But I think we're going to tie this into a tidy little bow here. So, as a rule, I tend to believe that running backs can make offensive lines one grade better than they actually are, and vice versa. What does that mean? I think a great running back can make a bad offensive line look average, and an average offensive line look good, all things being equal. That's not, when I say all things being equal, I'm talking like not considering the matchup. Let's just assume like an average defense is across the line of scrimmage, right? Similarly, a great offensive line can make an average running back look good. I think you get my point. I think you get the direction where I'm going here. In this particular case, only right tackle DJ Glaze came close to playing every snap up front last year, and his run blocking grades were among the worst in the league among tackles. Once left tackle Colton Miller went down for the season in early October, I think any hope Genty had of being a consistent fantasy RB1 went down with him. And just like we talked about with Kevin Patullo, Chip Kelly has never shown much of an ability to adjust well to what defensive coordinators give him once they've seen what he has to offer a few times. Kubiak has had a profound effect. You touched on this already with New Orleans back in 2024, and obviously this year with Seattle. He's had a profound effect on each of the last two offenses that he's coordinated. So I think it's safe to bet on him doing so in Vegas as well. With that said, the Raiders' offseason needs to be about solidifying the interior of that offensive line and making the quarterback position the viable threat again. Could they go with Geno Smith again? I suppose if you beef up the interior of that offensive line, get Colton Miller back for a full season, you've got the start of something. I think Kubiak could make do with that. Getting Fernando Mendoza in there, having him establish himself, be the quarterback that we hope that he can be Mr. Accuracy, which we'll talk about him in a bit, so I won't go chapter and verse. And I'm not that I'm going to go chapter and verse on any of the rookies, but my point being is we saw that during that the college football playoff run that Mendoza had, that the guy, as I like to say sometimes with players that are quarterbacks that are very accurate, it's like an extended handoff. It can be a 20-yard throw, it can be a 30-yard throw, and you might as well just be handing the ball off to him because that's how on target he is sometimes. So anyway, establishing that part of the offense, and then I said establishing the interior of the offensive line, I established getting a good quarterback. Hey, we got to get an alpha receiver there too. Raiders have a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. Anyway, point being, the first in order, get the quarterback, which they should. Fix that offensive line. You need at least one solid addition in free agency, one solid addition probably in the second round on the offensive line, and then figure out receiver. I don't know if that's a Romeo Dobbs. I don't know if that's a Jawan Jennings. I don't know who that is, but not either one of those guys are wide receiver ones. But right. we need to get viable threats there in Vegas for Genty to have any hope of being the running back that we hope he can be.
Raiders are going to have not only draft capital, but some money in free agency to spend. The guy I like, Doug, that I think would be really cool to see him there is Alec Pierce because of how good he is downfield. Big play threat that I think could pair nicely with Jack Besh, who I know everybody's ready. Not everybody. A lot of people are ready to write off, but I think he makes a little bit of a leap forward this year. But I think he's more of an underneath type guy. Same thing with Bowers, who actually, I guess, can rip the seam every now and then. So, and then you have Genty obviously catching the underneath stuff. So I think if you have Pierce, if you got to account for his speed on the outside, that's going to open up a lot of stuff underneath, more so than say a Wan'Dale Robinson is another guy too that could be in consideration there. I don't know if they find anybody in the draft. I'd like to see them utilize their second round pick on a lineman rather than a receiver. But until they're on the clock, I won't know how I truly feel about it, and maybe they won't either. So, but like a lot of work to do. But I am warming up to Ashton Genty this year. And you think about it too. You mentioned Mendoza. The quarterback play should be significantly better this year. And Brock Bowers, when he wasn't hurt, Doug, he was playing hurt, and he just wasn't himself, and that affected the whole offense as well.
Yep, spot on. I have nothing more to add. Yep, go ahead.
The next topic is of the Super Bowl champs. We go to Seattle. Sam Darnold, along with Tom Brady from the Raiders, those are the only two quarterbacks in NFL history to win 14 games or more in back-to-back seasons. And Darnold is the only quarterback to win 14 plus games in his first season after changing teams, because he did this for the second year in a row in 2025. This time he won the Super Bowl championship this year with the Seahawks. 19 of 38, 202 yards, 1 touchdown, perhaps overshadowed by the Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker. I look at Mojo, and I see that Darnold, as far as the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament stuff goes, quarterback 20 at the 11:05. This guy just won a Super Bowl. Put up really good numbers this year. Yeah, they weren't fantastic, but you also got to consider that he had Smith and Jigba and then not a whole lot else. You know, you get another weapon on this team. Maybe Torrey Horton takes a step forward this year. I don't know how much they can count on Cooper Kupp again in 2026, but I know he's in the equation. But man, I drafted behind Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Tyler Shuck. I mean, I guess I just feel like Darnold should be going higher. Your thoughts on Darnold, because he did have some really good top 5 quarterback numbers this season in multiple weeks.
So much of what I think about Darnold is going to boil down to who the new offense coordinator is. Honestly, I think he's had. I don't want to overshadow or diminish what he's done the last 2 years, but he has found himself in 2 very good offensive systems and with 2 very good offensive coaches. The thing I would say, the notes I took, Darnold's quote-unquote turnaround should remind us all of how important context is when a player doesn't enjoy somewhat immediate success. Granted, Darnold, I think, just finished his 8th season. I know it's not, we're talking about a lot of patience there. If we have him in dynasty leagues, for example, he was probably long gone after year 3. So, looking through his career, when is the last time the Jets had a stable quarterback situation? Chad Pennington, if we're going to call that stable, that right. was almost 20 years ago, or at least 15 years ago. We saw glimpses of Darnold's upside in 2022 with the Panthers, but that was the year that Christian McCaffrey, I think, got hurt in about week 6, and that the offense was really reliant on him. And once he went down, that was pretty much it. Darnold has given Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan credit for helping him rediscover his joy for the game and emphasizing the amount of detail that needs to go into preparation. That happened in 2023. Next 2 seasons, not ironically, have seen him operate Shanahanian offenses. Lo and behold, it's amazing what happens when a good player can what a good player can do when he is constantly being asked to learn a new playbook. It's amazing, or when he's not asked to learn a new playbook, it's amazing that he can actually develop, build on something. So as far as what you're talking about with his early ADP, I won't say it sounds right, but I would definitely be in the I would steer away from him more than I would steer toward him until I find out who that offensive coordinator is.
You could be right, because even if it is a home run hire, I don't know how much his ADP jumps, so you may not be getting a whole lot of value there. The other thing to consider too is there's so much flux in that backfield, right? Like, we know Charbonnet is missing most of, if not all, of 2026. We don't know if Walker's back in Seattle. I think he is, but he's a free agent. I mean, we'll see what happens. I would think Occam's razor, to me, would dictate that Walker is probably back, and they probably have another guy that will be this year's Charbonnet, and that rushing attack is still very good next year. And that offensive line should be very good next year too. So maybe, with best ball, I get it. Darnold's going to have his spike weeks, but, drafting him in a redraft format where you got to, consider who to start each and every week, I think there's going to be a lot of misses for Darnold, mostly because I don't know how much he's going to be asked to win games. He's very effective when he needs to be, but he didn't need to be a whole lot this year because Seattle had an awesome defense and a really tough ground game. So there's that to consider as well. I think Seattle and Mike McDonald is probably going to try to emulate this year's squad as much as they can as they go for back-to-back Super Bowl titles, with the Super Bowl being held in Los Angeles this coming year. Another quarterback, Doug, that has been in the news is Jaden Daniels. Now, David Blau went from quarterbacks coach to now offensive coordinator. And he is going to, or he's already, Dan Quinn has already said that Jaden Daniels is going to be under center more in 2026. He also expects the team to use Daniels more this upcoming season. Quote, "We're going to feature every part of Jaden that makes him unique and special," end quote. This, to me, should be a ripe buying opportunity. The Commanders have a lot of cap space. They can bring in another receiver, maybe another tight end if Zach Ertz moves on. And Jaden Daniels is going to be healthy. But yet I look at his ADP. He didn't slip that much. What was he last year? Like quarterback 3, right around there being drafted?
3, 4, or right around the 3rd or 4th round. Middle 4th round was the latest you were getting him.
Yeah, and he has fallen all the way to quarterback 5 this year. He's still going quarterback 5. Now he is, Doug, going sort of in the mid to late 5th round, so there is a little bit of a slip there as well. But I look at Daniels and after the big 4 are Allen, May, Jackson, and Burrow. More on Drake May coming up later on in the show as well. But Daniels goes right after him. He actually goes right ahead of Jalen Hurts. After those top 4, I mean, I think it's a pretty good possibility that Daniels catches Burrow and ADP, may even catches Lamar Jackson, because I think we're going to hear a lot of positive news and people are going to feel warm and fuzzy about Jaden Daniels in year 3, much the way that they're feeling about him coming into year 2. But now he got that injury out of the way. Now is the time for the bounce back in Washington, and I feel like it does happen for Daniels this season.
Yeah, okay, so I have to separate my feelings for Daniels from my feelings for Blau. Okay, so let me talk about Blau first, and then I'll probably come back around to Daniels. I'm ready to be loud wrong about this, but consider me skeptical that a first-time play caller who has 1 year coaching experience, and I think it was assistant quarterbacks coach, David Blau.
Oh, wow, he might have been.
So consider me skeptical that a first-time play caller who has 1 year coaching experience, and that being what I just said, is ready to match wits with the likes of Vic Fangio and Mike McDonald, both of who are going to be on the schedule this year. And I know that's just 3 games, but there's more coordinators. I just wanted to stop there. I know I keep referring to Patullo. This is the 3rd time I've referred to him, but he was a first-time play caller last year, and with about 10 years of assistant coaching experience, and we see what happened there. I guess a lot of that is how much you take in while you're learning the craft. I guess it's how much you're absorbing, and apparently in Patullo's case, he didn't absorb a lot. So. Furthermore, as far as Blau is concerned, he's a former backup pocket quarterback who will need to understand how to relate to one of the most athletic dual threat players at his position. It also doesn't help Daniels that he isn't exactly built to take much abuse. So from the play calling perspective, this has to be a downgrade until Blau proves otherwise. Say what you will about Cliff Kingsbury, but he has now made 2 athletic quarterbacks into fantasy monsters for us.
Okay, so Kingsbury left early last month. He left the OC position in Washington, and apparently it was a mutual parting of ways, according to Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network. Jaden Daniels missed most of the regular season. I don't know if you can really blame that on Kingsbury. Pelissero at the time said that Kingsbury has head coaching interest and was going to have multiple offensive coordinator options. I think he ended up settling. I want to say he's like some sort of consultant or assistant coach with the Rams, right?
Yeah, he's the what do you call it? Assistant head coach. I think assistant head coach or something like that. Yeah.
So that's interesting that he decided to move out in what should have been a good bounce back year for Washington in the hopes of getting an OC gig or a head coach gig. And I didn't really hear his name, mentioned in a lot of hires. So I think that was interesting as well. Now, getting back to Blau, here's some fun facts. You're right. He was assistant quarterbacks coach. He only became the quarterbacks coach for the last 4 games of last season when Tavita Pritchard got hired as the head coach for Stanford. So really, he's only been the quarterbacks coach for 4 games in his career. And you do make a good point about this. And I might have to reevaluate how I feel about Washington, because no matter who they bring in, you do have to have somebody talented, somebody with the chop, somebody with the experience. Maybe that's Blau. Maybe he takes off. But I think with you saying, I think we should all be skeptical until we see it for our own eyes. Fun fact about David Blau. He is married to Colombian-American hurdler Melissa Gonzalez. Why do I mention that? Melissa Gonzalez has a brother named Christian who plays corner for the New England Patriots. So David Blau, brother-in-law of Christian Gonzalez. How about that? Crazy stuff. Small world. Let's get into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and specifically Bucky Irving. Now, what's interesting about the situation going on in there currently, as we try to figure out what to do in our fantasy drafts with that Buccaneers backfield, and I'm going to throw some ideas at you to see what you think. But I want to specifically mention what Zach Robinson had to say about Bucky Irving. Zach Robinson worked as the OC in Atlanta the last couple of years, so he obviously was very familiar with Bijan Robinson's game, how good he was, what he did well, what he didn't do so well. Spoiler alert, not much. He does pretty much everything awesome. And he was asked about Bucky Irving, and the quote that he gave is that he sees Irving in a very similar light to Bijan Robinson there with what he can do in the passing game. There's not a run concept that he can't run. High praise, obviously, coming from one Zach Robinson here. And I think that Bucky Irving is in a unique situation because Rachaad White should be moving on to I don't want to say greener pastures, but definitely pastures other than in Central Florida.
Some pastures.
Exactly. And it should be wheels up for Irving. I'm going to present. I want to add a thought after I hear what you have to say about this, but I'm going to present this right now. Bucky Irving is going as running back 13 in the mid-third, right between Josh Jacobs and Breece Hall, actually right before Derrick Henry as well. Is that how you view where Irving should be going? Is that a spot where you target him in? Even after we see this thing what Zach Robinson had to say about how he views Irving and what he does both in the passing game and the rushing game, I feel like his ADP might move up a little bit based on this. If you got Irving in Dynasty, it's giving you the warm fuzzies here, Doug.
Yeah, that feels like I don't know about significant value. That feels like a value. And so getting back to the statement that Robinson made, let's be clear. Zach Robinson made. Mm-hmm. I agree with the general premise of what he's saying, Irving being that he can view Irving in the same way he does Bijan. Bijan. He likes Bijan.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so I agree with the general premise because they're both very good players in the run and pass game. That's not in question. However, I don't think either one of us will believe or will find somebody that believes that they are on the same level skill-wise. That's not a knock on Irving. That's just how good Bijan is. So I would say that I think the key here will be the same as it will be for Ashton Genty. Offensive line play and offensive line health. Last year, the Bucs were basically the NFC version of the Raiders as far as offensive line is concerned. I was looking at some of their snaps across the offensive line. I don't think anyone come close. I don't think any of their offensive line came close to playing a full season. I saw a bunch of 600 snaps here, 200 snaps here. It was, needless to say, it was a revolving door. So even just better injury luck, that should help. At the very least, I think Irving benefits here from a play caller upgrade. I don't think Tampa Bay, that was another first-time play caller that just didn't work out. So I'm liking Irving to bounce back, if not for everything I just said, also because he's probably not going to lose 7 touches a week to Rachaad White. Maybe those go to Sean Tucker. I don't know, but I doubt it. I mean, let's say that they split half of what White leaves behind. Maybe they bring in another running back. I don't know, but my point being is, first of all, Irving's workload was not the problem. His efficiency was. His blocking was. So if we can just keep the same workload and get the offensive line to improve and maybe get a little bit more creativity from the play calling, I don't know. I'm not expecting a repeat of his rookie season, but I'm sure not expecting a repeat of last season either.
Your last point is kind of what I wanted to tackle with you is, Rachaad White moves on. Tucker is a restricted free agent this year. I would think he goes back to Tampa, but we don't know that. But what if they what if they sign? I mean, this is a pretty good free agent running back class too. And we know that Zach Robinson oversaw a ground game last 2 years that featured both Robinson and Algier. And oh, by the way, one of those free agents, Tyler Algier. What happens if he makes the trip from Atlanta to Tampa? What does that do for Irving's value? And I'm just using him as an example. There could be another running back that they sign. And then if that happens, how do we feel about Irving at the 306? I think I might, and you said it's a value, and I think it might be. But if they do sign somebody of significance, I don't know if they utilize a day 2 pick on a running back, but if they do sign somebody of significance, I think that 306 ADP falls even further. And I think that's the spot I wanted to be drafting Irving at, because I think that's going to happen. Now, I just don't know how good that running back's going to be. I think we can agree that they're going to sign somebody, but it could just be a depth guy too. It might not be right. They might want to keep Irving on the field as much as possible, but that's the only thing I would bring up. And I think I drafted Bucky, or I drafted 8 teams this past weekend. I think I got Irving on one of them in part because I was a little bit scared about drafting him that high, knowing that he's probably not going to be a bell cow. Like his best case scenario is probably a 1A.
So let me ask you, with the drafts that you're doing, do you think that the hesitation on drafting him with your fellow drafters is because they all think that he's going to get competition, or is it because that's where they think he's valued right now, regardless of any outside?
I don't want to speak for everybody because everybody's got their own thing. My guess, Doug, because what you brought up about the competition thing, that's kind of why I stayed away from him. I think there are people in drafts that believe that even if they do sign somebody, Tampa does sign somebody, that Irving is still worth that mid-third round pick. And maybe if they don't sign somebody, that ADP crawls up into the mid-second round, and all of a sudden you're getting Irving in the mid-third, right? So I think there's different. I didn't perceive any Bucky Irving hate, or any kind of like, hate's a strong word, but any kind of like Bucky Irving deflation when I was talking to people there. But I think there's a decent amount of different views on the spectrum of how to properly handle him right now for people drafting in February.
Understood.
The next aspect I want to bring up here with you is, and we were talking about this on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour last night, the aspect of David Njoku having a new home in 2026. He announced on Instagram, like all the kids do, that he does not plan on re-signing with Cleveland this offseason. Now, it was weird because during the season last year, during the trade deadline, he was a guy that was mentioned in a lot of trade rumors because they had Harold Fannin Jr. And Njoku, I think, still has a lot of value. It has a lot of good football left in him. And yet he went to the opposite side, said, I want to stay in Cleveland. I want to be here. Yeah. Even after the trade deadline, he was saying how much he wanted to be in Cleveland. And now, as of February 9th, when he posted this, things have changed. It will be the first year that he is on a different team other than Cleveland. He is 29, but he'll be 30 by the start of this NFL season. And perhaps he just realized that it's going to be better off not competing for targets at the tight end position with Harold Fannin, where he can go somewhere else. I think, as I just said, I do think he's still a significant tight end. I think he's going to be a contributor in fantasy. He's 2 years removed from 110, 120 target season, something like that. It was crazy. He's a Pro Bowler, which I know Shadur Sanders has sort of taken the sheen off what that means in the NFL now. But I don't know, man. You look at his ADP right now, it's at tight end 24 at the 1401. I mean, what would happen if Kelsey hangs it up and the Chiefs go out and sign David Njoku? What would happen if Seattle decides they want to upgrade the position over AJ Barner and they get it? They sign Njoku there, who would be probably the number 2 target or maybe number 3 target on that offense. I see a lot of ways that Njoku could really shoot up rankings once he finds a new home in free agency. Yeah. And certainly it remains a possibility that he could sign and just be competing like a half and half committee type thing with his new team. That's possible as well. But man, he only costs a 14th round pick right now, and this is a guy that I think stands a pretty good chance of having 80 or 90 targets this season on his new team. That's very intriguing for me, and that's a player I want to be in business with at that price point.
Well, Balky, rumor has it that you were 5 calls away from being invited to the Pro Bowl too. So
yes, I was actually 6. I was 6. I was 6 away. Yeah, Armani was slightly ahead of me, and then it was me after him. So, but yeah, it was
well,
this close and this close.
That's just bad talent evaluation.
Well, listen, they also picked Shadur Sanders ahead of both of us, so we kind of know.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
See, the pros missed too.
I think the Pro Bowl thing is I mean, that's another conversation for Flacco. We didn't even mention Flacco being a Pro Bowler this year too. It's just it's crazy stuff.
Two quarterbacks from the same team.
On the same team. The last time we saw that was Huntley and Lamar Jackson when Lamar Jackson went down, and I thought, well, we'll never see this again. 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks on the same team, and then here we are in 2026, and we're seeing it. And I guess I mentioned that Njoku was a Pro Bowler, but I think he was like a true Pro Bowler that year. Like he 80 some catches, 900 some receiving yards, half dozen plus touchdowns. And I don't know how you believe in or what you believe in the age curve for tight ends, but the fact that he turns 30 this year, I mean, I still think that's well within, putting up some pretty good numbers.
Yeah, I'm going to just echo a lot of what you said when you're talking about Njoku. So bear with me here. But I continue to marvel at how unappreciated or underappreciated Njoku is year after year in fantasy and in reality. Hell, the Browns didn't seem to appreciate him year after year. The guy is an athletic marvel as far as I'm concerned, and he's a top 10 tight end in my book, even as he is about to turn 30 this summer. I would love to see him land in Kansas City if Kelce retires. Of course, we say that about every free agent tight end probably every year. So if not, I think Miami and Carolina makes sense. But I don't care any of those 3 spots. You're telling me the 14th round for a tight end that has 90 target upside. I'm not so sure he doesn't have 70 catch upside. So I'm not sure that he doesn't. I'm not sure 70 catches, 100 targets. If you put him in the right situation, I told you what I think about him already. I think he's underappreciated. He's been underappreciated for 5 years, and that athleticism isn't just going to go away because the clock turns 30 in mid-July. So, or his clock turns 30 in mid-July. So, yeah, I'll scoop up all the 14th round Njoku I can get. That sounds like a hell of a bargain.
He only played. Here's what's wild about this. So he played in 12 games last year, granted with Fannin. He did get 48 targets, failed to notch 300 receiving yards, so that wasn't great. The year before, when he did have, there was no fan in there, he only played in 11 games and got 97 targets. And I think about that. That's basically playing 2/3 of an NFL season, and he got 64 catches that year. Yards per catch wasn't great. He just got over 500 yards, but he doesn't get in the end zone 5 times. And then we all know about what he did the 2 years before that. 81 catches in 2023, 58 catches in 2022. I think that the reward outweighs the risk here, and people should be in business with Njoku until his price goes up.
Real quickly, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the 2023, I think was ended by Flacco, but I think Flacco was the last of, or was that the Winston year? I think Winston was 2024. I think Flacco ended 2023.
I'm looking.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
All right.
So one of those years there was 4 quarterbacks. I think the other year there was 3 quarterbacks. I want 3 starters, 4 starters. What I'm saying here is just, I think it's pretty obvious. The Cleveland quarterback situation, it probably does not have a rival, in the last 5 to 10 years. Well, probably since they were reborn, actually, if we're going to be honest. But Njoku has had no shortage of starting quarterbacks. There's what's that stat about there being, what was it like? Is it 27, 28 starting quarterbacks since the Browns were reborn in 99. It might actually be in the 40s. I'm not, it's some god-awful number for 20 plus years. Anyway, point being, Njoku's had way too much quarterback turnover to say that, oh, well, you know what? He's just average. He's not average.
The quarterbacks that you're mentioning, 2023, 5 quarterbacks started games for Cleveland. Jeff Driscoll, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, PJ Walker, Deshaun Watson, remember him? And then as you'd mentioned, Joe Flacco. That was 2023. In 2024, for the Brownies, they had Winston start 7 games. Deshaun Watson started 7. You still had DTR in there. And then Bailey Zappi also started a game for the Browns that year. Woo! How the mighty have fallen, or the staying down there.
Or how the unmighty have stayed the same.
The unmighty have stayed the same. Yep, that's the more things change. Let's get into the team that lost the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots. Yes. Stephon Diggs says he expects to be back with New England, but he also said the Patriots are in control of what happens. 32 years old was how old Diggs was this past year. He was the first Patriots receiver to get 1,000 yards in 6 years. And he was actually coming off a torn ACL in 2024, which made this all the more impressive. He is signed for 2026 and 2027, but he's got a base salary of just under $21 million. That is not fully guaranteed. The Patriots could move on from him if they wanted to. 85 catches, 1,000 yards last year. I don't know if they want to move on from a guy that productive. And, certainly you can make the case that the Patriots had a soft schedule. But, if they did, they were probably running the ball with Stevenson and Henderson a lot. And maybe Diggs would actually see more action next year than what he did this past year. You got to believe Kyle Williams probably takes a little bit of a step up. Hunter Henry could actually be a cap casualty in New England too, so that things could change there. Stephon Diggs, though, Doug, wide receiver 41 at the 905 right now, kind of by himself between Michael Pittman and Chris Godwin right now. That's another ADP I like. I mean, I know the dude's going to be 33, but what he showed last year coming off a really significant injury, his quarterback looks good. I understand there's a non-zero chance that he could be on a different team than New England this year, but I don't know if I want to draft that way when I'm in the mid-9th and Stephon Diggs is staring me in the face.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have a lot to add here. I don't want that ADP. I don't want that position rank to go above 36. I think I'm out if it gets to be where he has to be a starter for me week after week. But he was one of those. You rattle off his numbers: 85 catches, a little over 1,000 yards. What was it? 4 touchdowns, I think.
Yeah.
Man, could you start? Did you like starting him more than 5 or 6 times this year?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
85 catches, and you're scratching your head as far as, man, he let me down this week. He let me down this week. I remember trading for I don't want to say a nice haul for him. What ended up being a bad trade for me, trying to get a wide receiver 3 it was right after the big game I think he had in week 5. Anyway, that was going to round out my lineup, and I was going to roll through the playoffs and everything. And then it was very much hit or miss since after I acquired him. But my point being is, I'm with you. I don't think they part with him unless he continues to do boneheaded things. Which, wow.
He does have some off the field stuff going on right now, so that probably plays into it as well.
So, but as long as he keeps himself somewhat out of trouble this spring and summer, I think they bring him back. That would be a huge deal if Hunter Henry is a cap casualty. I wouldn't think that's going to happen, but they do have. I suppose they could rely on Austin Hooper for a year if they needed to. I don't know. That's the way that you would want to go, but. Yeah,
and you're not going to draft anybody. Or maybe they sign Njoku. That's another possibility too.
I suppose.
If they decide to move on from Henry, if I remember correctly, Doug, the savings were okay if they cut Henry. But to me, for a guy who is as integral to the offense as he was in New England, I can't imagine that it would have been worth it to do it at that point. But there are whispers out there that he could be. I'm with you. I don't think he is. Moving on to Arizona. Kyler Murray. So the latest we get from him, Ian Rappaport said that the Cardinals are likely to move on him either via a trade or a release this offseason. Murray's $36.8 million salary is fully guaranteed. And if he is still on the Cardinals when the new league year begins in about a month, he is going to get a $20 million guarantee for the 2027 season. So I understand the possibilities here for Kyler Murray in 2026. They're not great. But I also understand that in the Justin Fields mold, he doesn't have to necessarily be a great NFL quarterback to be a great fantasy football quarterback. And he would need a starting spot, which I think if he's released, he probably would get somewhere, whether that's Miami or Pittsburgh or Minnesota or whatever. I don't know where he would go. But certainly somebody could take a chance on him. ADP on him is obviously going to be super low. Quarterback 22 at the 1204. Does that seem like a player that you want to be drafting in a best ball tournament where that guy is locked onto your roster for all 17 weeks of the fantasy season?
Best ball, I might argue that he's more attractive in best ball, but my thoughts on him are this. Okay, so didn't he seem like a world beater under Cliff Kingsbury? And I don't mean in terms of every week number one QB overall QB1 threat. I'm not saying that. But when he was healthy under Kingsbury, didn't it seem like he was routinely a top 12 quarterback?
Yeah, I would say like every week you knew he was going to be threatening to be a top 5 quarterback that week for sure. I mean, that was how explosive he was.
And so while I recognize that he has his downfalls, I don't think there's any doubt that he has his downfalls. I don't think the previous regime, that being Jonathan Gannon, that being Drew Petzing, I don't think they were all that interested in accentuating his talents and minimizing his negatives. They seemed more interested in pounding the rock with James Conner and playing defense, and they didn't seem to have either one of those for large chunks of time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned some of the potential suitors. I would be willing to bet the Dolphins, Jets, and Browns would be the most interested. I would say Dolphins, possibly. I would think the Jets would be interested.
Yep.
Browns, I think, probably have. I think their cap situation's probably. You still got to figure out what Watson's still taking money from the team. So anyway, I would guess a wild card, like you mentioned, would be the Vikings, but he doesn't seem to be a good fit for that the Kevin O'Connell offense. At QB 22, I'm in best ball. I'll be happy to roll the dice on that one, just because. I don't care if it's the Dolphins or the Jets. I think just his athleticism alone, for the same reason a lot of the fantasy community loves to diss on Justin Fields, but man, when he plays, he can start for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Kyler Murray is a better version of Justin Fields, at least a more accurate version, a better quarterback than Justin Fields. So I think wherever he goes, he has more staying power than Justin Fields has ever had. So I'm in at QB 22.
And I know Murray was underwhelming last year, but he wasn't as bad as Fields was for the Jets. Was just really abysmal. Yep. In a situation where the Jets really had no business benching Fields, they had to bench Justin Fields. That's how bad he was. I don't think Kyler Murray ever got to. Part of the reason Kyler Murray was soft benched, for lack of a better term, was because Jacoby Brissett was playing like a man possessed, and Tyrod Taylor and the other Jets quarterbacks last year were not. So I'm with you. I think Murray is a rich man's version of Justin Fields for sure.
I want to throw this in real quick at you, because I know we got plenty to do here. So I talked about Drew Petzing for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So is Drew Petzing the guy that doesn't know how to use Marvin Harrison and apparently Kyler Murray, or is he the guy that can make Michael Wilson a fantasy star?
Well, I want to get so I want to put a pin in that, because when we get to the Trey McBride portion of the program, I want to throw a couple of theories at you in regards to what we should be doing with Arizona players this year. And a lot of it hinges on what Petzing and Brissett did for that offense last year. Because I think you bring up a good question. Doug, and it's something that I know the viewers care about. So we'll get into that for sure. We'll actually get into that in the third segment. Coming up in the second segment, we will be talking about the rookie report. We're going to get Doug's thoughts on some of the incoming rookies to this class: Katron Allen, Ted Hurst, Tanner Koziel, Garrett Nussmeier, Sawyer Robertson, and so much more. You are watching the FFPC Insider Access Show. He's Doug Orth from the Huddle. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Hey, folks, don't forget that the FFPC Dynasty Leagues and Empire Dynasty Leagues feature a ton of great orphans right now at myffpc.com. If you want to go to myffpc.com, click on the Dynasty Orphans link from the drop-down tab. You're going to see all the orphans we have there, from $77 all the way up to $5,000. Those are just the leagues, the entry fees for the leagues. But you can get those teams for much smaller than that. $750 teams for $100, $500 teams for $50, $77 teams, $100 teams, sometimes for as little as $1. Check it out, myffpc.com. Build up your dynasty. Build up your empire right now. Play fantasy football every single day of the year with FFPC Dynasty Orphan Leagues at myffpc.com. Don't forget, if you want to play in best ball, we've been talking about some best ball values with the FFPC tonight. The Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament is live, $125 to enter that. $40,000 grand prize, $35 entry in the Never Too Early Super Flex Best Ball Tournament. $10,000 will be awarded to the first place finisher there as well. myffpc.com. Get in there now, though, because those drafts, those tournaments will shut down by the start of the NFL draft. So you want to make sure you get in while you can now. A tournament that we will have going throughout the summer, in fact, all the way up to week 1, is the FFPC Big Gorilla. $350 entry fee, $1 million grand prize. We got the 7 Bananas and Early Rampage promotions going on right now. myffpc.com. That Early Rampage tournament winner is going to get 25 grand. You say, Balky, I want to get in the Early Rampage tournament. Can I just do that and not the Big Gorilla? No, because it's free. The Early Rampage tournament is essentially a free entry when you play in the Big Gorilla right now, because you're getting into both tournaments for that same $350 entry fee. And for the first time ever, the Baby Gorilla, $125 to get in, and you can win $100,000 grand prize, exact same format as the Big Gorilla. And that's going to lead you all the way to the start of the NFL season. Draft as many big Baby Gorillas throughout the summer there as you please. myffpc.com is where to go for all of those. That's myffpc.com. FFPC Insider Access rolls on. We're coming up on hour number 2 of the program tonight. Happy to be joined by my good buddy Doug Orth, who was drafted in the FFPC Pros versus Joes numerous years, had a lot of success there, has had a lot of success playing high-stakes fantasy football, 2.5 decades straight with not a losing season. Check out his work at thehuddle.com, of course, FF Today and Fantasy Points. Doug Orth on the X is where to find him there. Doug, let's get into some rookies here. And, I don't know how you want to take this. We'll take any kind of evaluation you have. If you want to look at these guys through a dynasty scope, through a redraft scope, a best ball scope, what have you. But I want to kind of get your thoughts on, and I don't know how many we'll get through tonight, but I want to get your thoughts on what stands out when you think about these players and how good they're going to be and what they profile at the next level. We'll kick things off with the running back out of Washington, really a squat, low center of gravity, powerful type guy, Jonah Coleman. Now, does that mean, to me, when I hear that type of that type of description. And granted, I'm the one giving the description here, but I just feel like, oh, that means like Michael Turner. He's going to need a lot of volume in order to be successful. I don't know how good he's going to be catching balls in the pros. Your early thoughts on what you know about Jonah Coleman as he gets ready to be drafted in Pittsburgh coming up in April.
So I want to be clear with regarding all these rookies that we're talking about. I have not started my draft profile, so I haven't studied any of these players. I have seen many of them in passing, either during the college football playoffs, or I'm a loyal Nebraska fan, having been born and raised in Nebraska. So at least I can speak intelligently about at least one of the guys that we're going to talk about here.
Right? Yes.
But anyway. So I want to set that clear, as I have not studied any of these guys yet. I've just watched most of them in passing. Regarding Coleman, what he feels like to me, he feels like one of those bowling ball types that will consistently be about a 700 to 800 yard rusher who gets the bulk of the work in the red zone. It's not that he can't be an asset in the passing game. It's not that he can't be anything else, but I think what we've seen so far, even with all the things he did at Washington, I think we're probably looking at a committee back here. Mm-hmm. So, again, I shouldn't even throw this out there, but I wouldn't have him any higher than RB3 in this class right now, and that's again before I start studying these guys.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about, where some of these guys could end up, and he'd be a guy that if Tampa were to draft Jonah Coleman, it's like, oh, son of a, with Bucky Irving. It could be that, it could not be that. When you look at where we see him going, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't strike me as a very, like, he's probably day 2, right? But this is also a weaker class. Like, some of these day 3 running backs that went in the 2025 draft would have been slam dunk day 2 picks. And some of the guys are going to go day 2 this year probably would have been easily going day 3 last year. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But Coleman's an interesting guy. I think it hinges on, like, if because I don't really doubt the size and I don't really doubt the strength and the tenacity. But if he's able to catch, 25, 30 passes as a rookie, I think we might have something here. Whether he does that or not as a member of a committee, I'm skeptical of. Let's talk about Emmett Johnson for your Nebraska Cornhuskers, a player that went late in a lot of the drafts that I was in this past weekend. Johnson playing with Raiola last year, right? As the quarterback, I want to say.
For about half the season, then Riley got hurt. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So he was part of like a pretty good offense there. What do you like about Emmett Johnson? And most importantly here, Doug, how does what he did for the Huskers translate at the next level?
Well, as you alluded to, as I mentioned before, Johnson is someone I have watched a lot as a Nebraska fan. The improvement that he made from 24 to 25 was immense. And that some of that has to do with the fact that he just got a lot bigger share of the workload. But he made a substantial improvement because last year, I'm sorry, in 2024, he did not look special to me. And I'm not saying he's super special now, but he looked like an NFL running back this year. The coaching staff, specifically head coach Matt Rule, would tell anyone that would listen that Johnson was his Christian McCaffrey this past season. While they're not in the same class skill-wise, Rule and company certainly used Johnson in the same way. I think some of his best tape was against UCLA. If anybody that's listening here wants to go watch some clips from that game, the UCLA game, and then his last college game against Iowa. Now, I was not overly impressed. A lot of people seem to be impressed with Iowa and thought that they were a better team than I did, at least when I watched them against Nebraska. But what I can tell you is year after year, they can run the ball and they can defend the run. And Emmett Johnson looked good, really good he looked like a workhorse. He looked like he had explosion. And for somebody who had already had that much work going into the Iowa game, and then he carried a heavy load in that game. Of course, Nebraska got blown out there at the end. But the point being is he was still chugging. He looked every bit like a late second, early third round pick. And maybe that's being conservative. He runs with more power than you would expect from a 200-pounder. But the aspects of his game that stand out to me are his receiving ability, which you saw in the UCLA game, and then his jump cut and cutback ability, which the cutback ability tells you that he's got vision. His jump cut ability tells you he's got some twitch, that he's got some athleticism. To me, again, going into this, not that I do pre-film rankings of these guys, but he would be my RB2 if I was to draft knowing what I know today.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question is he your number? Because I think a lot of people had put Coleman up there, and now I'm hearing more people say, oh, you got to look at Emmett Johnson. Another player that we need to take a closer look at here is the guy who is backing up Nick Singleton at Penn State, and that's Kaytron Allen. Kaytron Allen is a player that was really solid over the last 2 years in college football at Penn State. Johnson had at least 200 carries, 1,000 rushing yards, and 10 touchdowns in both 2024 and 2025. This past year, Allen, 210 carries, 1,300 yards, and 15 touchdowns. And this is all, again, where he wasn't the guy. Like, there was another guy in this offense in Singleton. And now he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I would say that his size, 5'11", 220, that's not unlike prototypical running back size. We'll see what he does strength-wise at the combine. Very excited to see him. But this is a player, again, when we drafted windows, Doug, I could easily see this guy playing right away if the starter goes down or if he's part of a committee, and having like a 1 or 2 week, maybe a 3 week window where the coaches trust him to touch the ball 15, 20 times, and he becomes viable as a running back too, as early as his rookie year. Maybe I'm a little bit down on Singleton, but I'm definitely higher on Allen here. Your thoughts on him?
I want to add one more thing about Johnson before I get to Allen. I don't have much to say about Allen. Unfortunately. I saw him against Nebraska, and lo and behold, he looked good. Anyway, but Emma Johnson, I see a little bit of Aaron Jones in him. So if the people want to run with that a little bit, go for it. You go ahead.
Go ahead.
You mentioned Allen. I think you pretty much summed up what I saw about Allen. More of a pounder. Much closer to Coleman, Jonah Coleman, than Emmett Johnson. Seems to me somewhat like Coleman. He's going to be much more suited for complementary work, but just like you said too, he's probably going to be the RB2 for whatever team he joins fairly quickly. And if that main running back goes down, this Allen seems like somebody who could go 15, 55 and a touchdown and get you through a few weeks in fantasy. So. I won't be making a huge play for him. I won't be trying to reach for him in redraft, and I won't probably be trying to trade up for him in dynasty or rookie drafts. But I think a serviceable RB2 / backup running back is where I'm at with him right now.
Adam Randall is the last running back I want to ask you about. And I think, and this is the thing that I think everybody brings up in regards to Randall. Dude was a wide receiver. And until 2025, he has one season playing running back. He is a big man. He is a 6'2", 235-pound running back who went over 800 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns this past year. Also had 250 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. We know he could catch the ball. He used to be a receiver. So I think there's no question about that. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is Clemson really struggled this past year. Yeah. And that obviously plays into how good Randall was and how good he could be on this type of offense. Basically, what we have to ask ourselves when we consider drafting Randall in dynasty or even redraft is how much does the 1 year playing the position affect like his growth, potential for growth, right? As a rookie, is it a longer curve because now he's got to learn the position that he's only played for 1 year at the highest level, or is it shorter because this guy already made some big strides to be able to play this position at a D1 level at a one of the top football programs in the country. Sure. and sky's the limit, right? So you can look at it a couple of different ways here for Randall. When it comes to stuff like this, Doug, I usually bet on the upside side of things. So I think I'm more than likely to take Randall late in best ball drafts right now. I'm more likely to draft him in my dynasty rookie drafts coming up in May. I'm more likely to do that than I think my fellow owners, because I recognize the possibility that maybe this guy has a higher ceiling than we actually think, because we just haven't seen a whole lot of this guy play this position.
One of the things I've tried to do in recent years is look, especially when I draft fantasy, or especially when I'm trying to evaluate some of these guys in the summer, is consider archetype. And Randall's archetype is, I'm sure he's going to come into the league and the coaches are going to look at him and he's going to be a third down / passing down back. Whether or not he's a good blocker or not is another story. I don't think that's probably going to be the case. After Travion Henderson last year, I'm not gonna pretend like I know anything about pass blocking going from college to pro, because Travion Henderson was the best pass blocking running back I'd ever seen, and he really struggled with that. Now, was that because Josh McDaniels' offense is complex? Probably, but either way. So if it's a transition for Henderson, it's going to be a transition for Randall. My point being is that we, in PPR leagues, we like receiving running backs. Randall should be one of those pretty early in his career. So if you're going to bet on somebody, you want to bet on somebody that has that is that archetype, right?
Yeah. No, it's a good way of looking at it.
So my fear at the moment, so we had a running back here a couple years ago who had this similar transition a little bit earlier, I believe, was Tyrone Tracy, right? And my fear is that that's kind of the track that his career follows. I don't know how old Randall is. I don't think he's old as Tyrone Tracy was when he came out of college.
I think he's 21. I'm going to look that up right now.
Okay. Now if he's 21, then I'm really buying on the upside, because I think Tracy came out when he was 24 or 25.
Yeah. Randall turns 22 in July.
Very good. Okay. So I would be much more apt to buy on the upside in rookie drafts there. And then you mentioned he's 235 pounds. So in theory, I know size does not mean he's a great inside runner, but if you have that kind of size going for you and you've already proven you have the hands, okay, maybe your floor is Damian Williams. You remember him from the Chiefs and the Bears a few years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe that's your floor. I don't know, but it's not a bad floor to have. And no, go ahead.
The other thing you mentioned, the versatility. It seems like versatility is coming back into vogue in the NFL, where it's very nebulous what a team, if he is successful as a running back at the next level, Doug, it's going to be very nebulous as to what the offense is doing when Randall is out there, because he could easily be pass blocking, he could be catching a pass, he could be running the football. To have these multi-positional versatile, I mean, the Packers do this all the time, where they want their receivers to be able to run these, jet sweeps or whatever, they all have to be able to block, because they don't want teams getting tipped off. That's the other thing. We didn't get a chance to talk about Travis Hunter in the opening segment, but that's the other thing that worries me about Hunter is, number one, we're all worried about how much corner he's going to be playing this year. And maybe, because he is going to be playing that, he'll be playing less wide receiver. But if he is playing less wide receiver and he's out on the field, you probably know the ball's going to him. Like, he's not going to be playing offense to be a decoy, which obviously irritates me. But bring it back to Randall here. I'll just sum up my thoughts in this. The dude, it looks like he is going to be a multifaceted individual at the next level. We only have 1 year of tape on him. He certainly could bust, but he could be really, really good too. And I think that's what intrigues me, is I just see this possibility for upside at the next level. And I know the price tag won't be high to get him.
Yeah. And if we're talking rookie drafts, unless he blows up the combine, I don't think he's going before the third round of rookie draft. So that's where you want to take that's the profile you want to bet on in the third and fourth round of rookie drafts.
Moving on to wide receiver. I feel like on this show the last few weeks, I've talked about Carnell Tate a lot, talked about Jordan Tyson a lot, have not talked a whole lot about Mekhi Lemon. Lemon declared, it was an early entry into the draft. It was his junior year this past year with the Trojans at USC. 79 catches, 1,100 yards, and 11 touchdowns. He won the Biletnikoff Award as the nation's best wide receiver as well. He's only 21, and he has a chance to be the number 1 wide receiver in this year's draft. The analysis I have read and heard from more than a few people says that this guy, maybe he's never going to be the alpha number 1 on a team, but he certainly should have a high floor, maybe even as soon as his rookie year. How do you weigh a low floor, a high floor, low ceiling type of player like Mekhi Lemon? Or maybe you have a different take on Lemon right now, Doug?
Unfortunately, I would love to give you a well thought out analysis of Lemon. I've seen very little of him. I saw him play against Nebraska, and he was a complete non-factor in that game. And I can tell you that while Nebraska's pass defense ranked among the best nationally, that when the Huskers played for Utah, for example, now I granted there was a lot of players missing from both sides at that point, because bowl games aren't what they used to be in terms of player participation anymore. But Utah had their way against Nebraska in the passing game, and there were a few other teams that Rutgers had a lot of success against Nebraska in the passing game when we were number 1 in pass defense at that time. And so I would, based only on that, I want to be clear, based only on that, if you don't show up against what I think was probably maybe more like a top 20 pass defense in Nebraska, and I know he had some big games against some other schools, but I think he is probably one of those risky receivers. So you mentioned Jordan Tyson, you mentioned Carnell Tate. Right now, I'm thinking wide receiver 3 in this class until I watch more, because I think there is some downside with him.
Yeah, there is some downside for sure. And I think the upside of, like, I could easily see Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson in their primes being top 10 dynasty wide receivers for several years, right? I don't know if I see that with Lemon. Now I could be wrong, but I'm with you. I don't necessarily see that right now. Doug, were you at the Senior Bowl this year, or did you just take in the action?
Yeah, everything is on NFL Network, so I DVR, and then I go home and I view the practices, and then I watch the game. So hopefully I can pitch to the bosses in the near future about going to Mobile. But this year I wouldn't have wanted to been down there because it was as cold there as it was here. So.
Hey, I heard a lot of people did not make it down there because of flights being delayed because of weather and stuff. There's a smaller turnout among the media this past year as well.
Yeah.
What did you make of, in one of the stories of the Senior Bowl, both practices and the game, was the Notre Dame receiver Malachi Fields? Are you buying into the hype that so many people seem to be buying into with him right now, perhaps being a round 2 pick, maybe even the back end of round 1?
Yeah. Okay. So what I did for the Huddle is I did three straight days of practice report write-ups. So feel free to go to the Huddle. It's still there on the front page. Senior Bowl practice recap day 1, 2, and 3. I'll share a couple of notes that I jotted down about him during practices at the Senior Bowl. He's not all that twitchy at 6'4" and 218 pounds, and seems destined to be a contested catch receiver in the NFL due to his inability to create much separation. Mm-hmm. On the plus side, there were no shortage of examples of his ability to high point the ball and win at the catch point. Whatever he lacks in terms of speed and acceleration, however, he makes up for with that same size that I told you about. He's got 10-inch plus hands. We like that at quarterback. We like that on the offensive line. We usually don't see that at receiver. And the ball does look small in his hands, relatively speaking, to a lot of other players. So he's got good size, he's got big hands, and he can track the ball. And that tends to kind of get lost in the conversation when we're talking about receiver prospects, is the ability to track the ball. I believe he was the one, if I'm remembering correctly, he had a catch, basically about a 55-yard catch where he was looking over so he had his hands up. He couldn't have seen the ball, right? It was basically he just put his hands up, and he might have caught the ball right as it was coming over his helmet. Just puts his hands out, dives, 55-yard catch from It was a thing of beauty, that catch was. And that gives you a pretty good idea of that tracking ability, late hands tracking ability. I think the lack of elite measurables is probably what's going to put him in the upper part of the second round and not in the first round. I don't see a first round talent in terms of explosion and those type of things, but no, I see a fairly significant contributor, a good solid wide receiver too for a team. That's what I see.
Yeah, and I think that's accurate. And I drafted him, I think, in one league this past week. He's, sometimes I don't know if I'm just being like a sizist, but sometimes I see these big guys that get day one or day two draft capital, and I just feel like, you know what, especially with Fields, with how good he is using his body, I just feel like if he's given the opportunity, he's going to be able to make it happen. Like he's going to be a guy that, maybe he doesn't bust like a 40 or 50 yarder all that much, but his quarterback knows that he can throw him an 8-yard hitch or a 6-yard out, and he's going to be there. He's going to make that play. He's going to get open enough to do that. And I think there's value in that, again, for dynasty and for redraft, for sure. Tell me about what your thoughts on Ted Hurst, speedster out of Georgia State. I know I hadn't heard a whole lot about him until the Senior Bowl, really, and it seemed like he was picking up steam. At least a lot of people were very interested to see what he was going to do against tougher competition in Mobile.
Yeah, see, the funny thing for him was, this is how I found out about him too, and he really popped that in day one, that Tuesday practice at the Senior Bowl. And then he didn't seem to be the part of the plan thereafter. It's whenever they were focused on one-on-one matchups, when they were doing wide receiver, cornerback one-on-ones, or even during the team drills, it didn't ever seem like he was. I couldn't find him, quite honestly. I couldn't find him. Not that I was rewinding the tape 5 times to find him, but he didn't seem to be part of the plan. I will tell you though, my guess on what I saw on day one of practices is that he ends up profiling as a field stretcher. I don't know. I don't want to put any kind of comp on him, because I'll tell you, the way he runs reminds me of Christian Watson, but he's not that fast. He's a long strider like Christian Watson, but that's about as far as I want to go with the Watson comparison. But I think we're looking. I would go so far right now as say I think he's a good field stretcher. I don't know about a sacrificial X. I won't go there yet either. But he does have some downfield ability. I will give him that.
The last wide receiver I want to bring up here, Josh Cameron, out of Baylor, made some plays, I know, in practices throughout the week, all over the board. From what I've seen in mock drafts for this guy, I've seen him listed as like a day 3 pick. I've seen him sneak up into the early 3rd round as well. I don't know what your thoughts are after seeing, albeit granted a small sample size, of Josh Cameron at Senior Bowl week.
If memory serves, I believe he was on the opposite team as Malachi Fields. I think because he stood out to me as the best receiver for his team. I want to say it was Fields was on the American, and I want to say Cameron was on the National, or vice versa. What doesn't really matter. To me, another highlight of Senior Bowl practices might have been how often Cameron was making back shoulder catches, which, if you knew about what he did at Baylor, that was par for the course. One comp I saw floated for him recently was Joshua Palmer. And similarly, my concern for Cameron my concern for Cameron, as is with Palmer, is that he ends up being one of those sacrificial X receivers that I was just talking about, who is more physical, maybe ends up being a better no, I don't want to say better blocker than receiver, but ends up being a coach's favorite because he blocks well, but because he's more physical than twitchy, he ends up being one of those sacrificial X's. So I liked Palmer coming out of Tennessee, so it's kind of unfortunate, I think, how his career has played out. But either way, I can see a career arc similar to Josh Palmer. So I know that doesn't probably do much that doesn't give us any warm fuzzies, but I think that's kind of what we're looking at right now. I will tell you though, his ability to track the ball and make back shoulder catches is pretty good.
And the other thing too, part of the reason that Palmer's career has not taken off. He's dealt with a lot of bad injuries too. And if Cameron stays healthy, certainly the prototype for Josh Palmer would play, but maybe the career ends up being better because he doesn't deal with these nagging injuries as well. Tight ends here. We'll go over a few of these guys. I want to kick things off with Max Clare. Max Clare was at Purdue for 3 years. Then he transfers to Ohio State. Doug, I'm going to read you a stat line here. His final year at Purdue as a sophomore. 51 catches, 685 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That was in 12 games. Now, his junior year at Ohio State, he plays in 2 more games. He plays in 14 games, but gets 8 fewer catches and about 160 fewer receiving yards, half the amount of touchdowns as well. Is that more of a problem with playing on the same offense as Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate? Or is there something weird here that he goes to Ohio State and the numbers actually go down?
Yeah, without knowing more, I think my conclusion will be the same after I watch him as it is now, and that's playing with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate.
Which makes sense, right? I mean, I can't name one other player that he was going with Purdue at, and Carnell Tate and Jeremiah. I mean, Carnell Tate, there's very real possibility that dude is a top 5 overall pick in this year's draft, and Jeremiah Smith is, at least as it stands right now, a lot of people's number 1 overall, not for wide receiver, number 1 overall pick.
Yes,
27 NFL draft as well. All right, so bringing up Eli Stowers here. He is one of these guys, you love to see it because he catches so many passes. This past year, 62 catches, 769 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Skipped the ReliaQuest Bowl because he's going to be in the draft this year. He started off as a quarterback at Texas A&M. Then he went to New Mexico State, played both quarterback and tight end there. Transfers again to Vanderbilt, was only a tight end and one of the best tight ends in the country, at least as a statistical standpoint goes. My concern with Stowers is I don't think he's all that great of a blocker. Size-wise, he's a little thin, 6'4", 235 for an every down tight end position in the NFL. But maybe this is more of a commentary on, do we really care? Because Gadsden last year was sort of an undersized tight end. He was a big wide receiver, but he was playing tight end. And he flashed. He did well. And now he's going to get Mike McDaniel to know how to use him properly as well. Maybe there's a future, especially in tight end premium leagues like the FFPC. Maybe there's a future for Eli Stowers in the NFL where he doesn't have to be like an every down tight end. As long as he's out there on certain downs, passing downs or whatever, they can utilize his skills best. Then all of a sudden he becomes a top 12, a top 15 tight end in his heyday, or maybe even better over the course of his career. This is Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or want to piggyback on anything I said, Doug.
Yeah, I think I can just piggyback, but I mean, as far as his profile, that's what we want. Unfortunately, you mentioned the blocking concerns, and if he's only on the field for half the snaps, then he's got to have the targets per route run. It's got to be he's got to be so efficient and so good with that. Tight ends, I don't want to say tight ends. It's more important for tight ends to have a good landing spot and to have a good fit, but it is damn important that that's one reason why I feel like we can. It wasn't landing spot last year for Oronde Gadsden because he didn't have Mike Daniel back then. But I think we can look at it now and say it's a good landing spot now because McDaniel's there, right? And just like it was when Miami traded for Darren Waller last year or was playing Greg Dulcich at the end of the year. I don't want to say Mike McDaniel's the tight end whisperer either. I'm not trying to make that case, but what I'm trying to emphasize here is that it's important who they end up with and whether or not those play callers have the creativity to say, okay, I don't need a traditional slot receiver. I'll put my 6'5", 235-pound tight end out there. And if you do that, then we can talk about junior slot receiver production type of thing. So it's going to be landing spot, and you hope if he's, I don't know if he's destined to be a first round pick or not, but you'd like to believe if someone's going to burn a first round pick on him that they're going to do their best to make sure the investment pays off. So I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that I go crazy over in rookie drafts, but I think it's pretty clear he seems to be the tight end one as of right now.
The next player is Tanner Koziel, who ended up playing at Bowling Green in 2024. He transferred to Wisconsin for about a week, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And then he moved on from Wisconsin to Houston, put up his second straight 70-plus catch year, 700-plus yards, got in the end zone 6 times last year. I think he might have been the best or the highest rated transfer portal tight end last year. I don't know. But I know that at the Senior Bowl, I think, and I don't know if you felt the same way, seemed like people were kind of disappointed with his performance there, Doug. And if that's the case, you got to wonder if a guy who he sowed his oats at Bowling Green in Houston, you got to wonder if he can make that next step to the NFL when he certainly did not separate himself, at least in a good way, at Mobile.
In the scouting community, they like to say grade the flashes. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but I will tell you that he okay, first of all, I'll tell you that the first 2 days of the Senior Bowl practices, completely invisible as far as I'm concerned. Okay. If they mentioned him, if he did something positive, let's just say I didn't see anything positive. If one of the commentators was talking about him, I don't remember that happening either. So I didn't see him, and I don't think he was mentioned very much at all. But he did have in Thursday's practice. I did note this in my notes for the huddle that I want to say it's toward the end of practice, but I think it was in team drills where he lined up in line, ran a nifty corner route, something. I think he goes. Does he go 255? Do you have his size?
He's 6'7", actually. 6'7", 250 pounds. Had to get it in.
Yeah, that's right. For somebody 6'7", 255, that's why I mentioned that he ran a nifty corner route, because I was not expecting to see somebody that size run that nifty of a route. And anyway, he caught a ball, I want to say over his shoulder from North Dakota State's Cole Payton. And so now we're not grading Senior Bowl practices, mind you, but if you're going to say, okay, I see I see a small sliver of what he can be. That play was a small sliver of what he could be. Loved his ability, even at his size, to high point the ball. He didn't need to high point the ball, but he did anyway. One of the things that I remember, I think it was Tagovailoa was talking about when Darren Waller was one of the few times he was healthy this year, right? That Waller just gave him I don't know what his exact word was, but he gives me a different level of where I can throw the ball where no one else can get it type of thing. And that's what this guy, in at least in the most optimistic scout's eye, that's what this guy could do.
We'll see where Koziel ends up, because, well, regardless of where he ends up, should be a great end zone target for whatever quarterback is throwing to him.
Agreed.
I want to move on to quarterbacks here while we can.
Yes,
Fernando Mendoza, let's lead off with him. Everybody's talked about him to death, but Doug, I want to know in seeing what Mendoza was able to do this past season at Indiana, what are some of the things that get you excited about what you see from him now that should translate to a professional football field? And then what are some of the things maybe we don't know or that you haven't seen enough of to know, well, I just don't know if he's going to be capable of doing this at a professional level, something that you'll need to do to be a successful NFL quarterback.
This quarterback, more than any other position, is one that I feel like I need to study before I can make study more before I can make ironclad, and even then you don't want to make ironclad decisions. You want to be, this is what I think. Indiana's offense. Okay, well, put it this way: he's a quick decision maker, which is what you need at the pro level. You need guys who can make snap decisions and make good snap decisions. He's got that. How much of that was Kirk Cignetti's offense? I can't tell you. Again, that's why I need to study more often. One of the things you don't want to have to teach at the pro level is accuracy. And he's got accuracy. There's accuracy and there's being able to throw the ball with precision. And for about the 3 games that I watched during the college football playoffs, most of his you want a precision thrower, and he was every bit of a precision thrower. It was a little bit tougher in the championship game, but that's to be expected with the competition. So my first 2 things right off the top would be he makes quick decisions, and I wouldn't say he's accurate. I would say he's precise, and there's a difference. As far as negatives, I know people are talking about him being a good size. Man, he does not look like he's a good size. I don't think he's got enough. I don't think he's got enough muscle to his frame yet to be running like he. You remember that shot that he took on the plunge in the end zone in the national championship game. I know not a lot of quarterbacks can take that shot, but I thought he was going to break in half when that happened. So he wasn't a system quarterback, but I do fear that there is some system quarterback to what he was doing. So I think between the size, him needing to add a few pounds of muscle, and doing something else besides RPO and quick game. Again, I know that he did more than that, but I need to see more of that than what I saw.
I just realized I never paid off the breaking news at the top of the show. Trinidad Chambliss won his injunction, and he will be at Ole Miss for the 2026 season, which caught me off guard because I thought for sure he was going to be denied, but that's not the case. So we don't have to talk about him. I really want to see how he develops in 2026 because he's going to be stepping into a much more loaded quarterback class than he would have this year. Garrett Nussmeier was a player that was a Heisman candidate at the start of the season, and this really is the mighty falling. He was reported to have a degenerative knee condition by his old coach, Brian Kelly, in a post-game press conference. But as far as fantasy goes, we don't necessarily care about that as long as we can get some good years out of him, out of his stats at least, to not dehumanize him. I think that's what we care about most. But Nussmeier is a player. I think he made a few plays at the Senior Bowl, and obviously I think he was the offensive MVP in the game, was he not?
I believe so, yes.
I think that Nussmeier represents a certain level of upside that perhaps we thought we were going to get as more of a higher floor type player at the start of the season, and now we're looking at maybe a low floor, potentially high ceiling type player in the NFL.
I went into Senior Bowl week thinking that I was going to see the fraction of what happened during the 2024 season, because like you said, he entered this season as a Heisman Trophy candidate, and then 2025 happened, and that was for any number of reasons. Honestly, he did not pop at all during practice week. I mean, I don't think he was the best quarterback for his team in any of the 3 days of practice, but he did start for his team in the game on Saturday, and I think he was the best quarterback that played on Saturday. When we're talking upside, I think we're probably talking, and I hate this term because of how it's perceived, but I think we're talking right now. I'm going to rely. First of all, I'm going to rely more on the 2024 tape. Mm-hmm. I'm going to maybe watch 1 or 2 games of 2025. I'm going to rely more on the 2024. Right now, like I said, based on how it's construed with most people that consume football, I think we're looking at a game manager type who can, and to be a good quarterback, you have to be a game manager. So I don't want that to be a negative term, but I think that's what we're looking at right now. I'm not sure I see somebody that is going to raise the level of the play around him. That raises the level of his play of his receivers. I don't see that yet anyway.
And maybe somebody made this. I'm talking upside here. Somebody made this comment. I can't remember who it was. He's the type of guy that might have a 3 or 4 year NFL career and then be coaching before he's 30. In the NFL, which is I mean, he comes from his uncle That was the old NFL quarterback Doug Nussmeier, or is that his father? I don't even know. It's
his father is the offense coordinator for the Saints.
Got it. Okay, so there you go. So maybe that's his future. I don't know. Garrett Nussmeier, we'll still see what happens with him going forward. I want to take our final break here, Doug. When we come back, let's get into some targets and fades in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. And we have to get back to that Trey McBride discussion that we were having earlier. I want to bounce some ideas off you. He is Doug Orth from the Huddle, Fantasy Points, and of course, FF Today at Doug Orth on X. I'm Eric Balkman. Don't go anywhere. FFPC Insider Access rolls on right after this. I want to remind everybody, too, FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament's going on right now at myffpc.com. $40,000 grand prize with a $125 entry. That tournament, along with the Superflex version of the Never Too Early tournament, will shut off at the start of the NFL draft. So you won't be able to draft in that tournament after that. $35 entry fee for the Superflex version, $10,000 grand prize. And don't forget the FFPC Big Gorilla. A $350 entry fee, a $1 million grand prize. Those drafts are going on right now. 7 Bananas promo, as well as the early Rampage tournament going on right now. If you draft in the Big Gorilla right now, you're automatically in the early Rampage tournament, so you have a chance to win a $25,000 grand prize, in addition to the $1 million one. $125 entry in the inaugural FFPC Baby Gorilla tournament, and that features a $100,000 grand prize. Same exact rules and format as the Big Gorilla. And then don't forget about the Dynasty and Empire Dynasty Orphans we have at myffpc.com. Teams as low as $1. Play fantasy football all year long with FFPC Dynasty teams. Pick up an orphan now, add it to your portfolio, and turn it into a champion. That's all at myffpc.com. The home stretch of FFPC Insider Access for February 12th, 2026 is underway. My name is Eric Balkman. He is Doug Orth from the Huddle, FF Today, and Fantasy Points at Doug Orth on the X. The FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, I just told you, is live right now, the Superflex version as well. We'll be talking about ADPs from the classic version of this tournament, and we'll get Doug Orth's thoughts on whether these guys should be targets or fades. Leading things off will be the running backs tonight. Omarion Hampton was the player that dashed a lot of people's Najee Harris hopes in 2025, right? A lot of people, when Harris signed with the Chargers, they said, wheels up, number one running back, here we go, going to be a massive season, Greg Roman, Harbaugh, and then they draft Omarion Hampton in the first round of the draft, which kind of threw a monkey wrench into that. My contention here, what happens if the Chargers do it again this year, but this time Hampton is the victim? Certainly you could make it seem that no matter who they sign or who they draft, Hampton's still going to be the 1A in that offense. But should we be assuming bell cow status for him, or should we be assuming that there will be somebody else in that backfield that is better or more talented than Kamani Vidal or Najee Harris? Right now, running back 8 at the 206, right next to one Jeremiah Love. That is where Hampton is going right now. Doug, is he a target? Is he a fade, or is he somewhere in the middle for you?
Right now, he's a target for me, and I have to believe that Vidal did enough with his opportunities that I don't think that finding another option and finding another back is going to be a high priority for them. So I think they go into next fall with Hampton and Vidal as the top 2 options, and so at that point, then okay, what's the workload split? Of course, that's a great question, but we saw you don't want to take too much from a coach's previous stop, but Mike McDaniel did see who the best option in Miami's backfield was, and he did commit to geez, I won't think of his Mostert right now. HM, geez, it was pretty. He had no problem committing to HN, even though there was plenty of doubters about whether he could hold up for a full season. So, yeah, to answer your question, he's a target for me for now.
What about RJ Harvey? This is another guy that, well, I think what's scary to me about Harvey, and you could look at this from a dynasty perspective, although I hate making dynasty wide scoping decisions about players after 1 year in the league. But Harvey was pretty inefficient and really didn't wow us a whole lot when J.K. Dobbins went down. At least he didn't wow us to the level that we thought he would. Sean Payton was still trotting out guys like Jaleel McLaughlin in that backfield, in instead of using Harvey more. And now, granted, Dobbins is a free agent. There's some scuttlebutt that he could be coming back to Denver. Remains to be seen. RJ Harvey is running back 18, early 4th round, behind Kyron Williams, right ahead of Trevion Henderson. Target or fade?
For right now, slight fade, and that a lot of that depends on whether Dobbins comes back or not.
If he comes back, I mean, Harvey's going to fall in ADP. I mean, he's got to at that point.
I do believe. Now, having said that, I'm not so narrow-minded or narrow-sighted to see, short-sighted to see that Sean Payton had more than just 2025 in mind when he drafted Harvey. This is probably. This isn't Reggie Bush. This isn't Darren Sproles, but this is probably his next iteration of that role. Now, whether that means 10 carries and 4 targets every week, I don't know, because that was more of a workload than it seemed like Reggie Bush and Darren Sproles ever got, except for when they were the only guys healthy type of thing. But I think that role is going to be ever present in Peyton's offense, and so to say he's a total fade would be ridiculous in my mind. And I think let's chalk this year up from the jump from UCF to Denver. And I don't think the Denver run blockers, I don't think the offensive line blocked as well for Harvey as they probably did for Dobbins, which was another factor. And that stuff happens sometimes.
It does. And the team that was the number 2 seed, beg your pardon, that ended up defeating RJ Harvey's Denver Broncos were the New England Patriots. They feature Ramondre Stevenson in this backfield along with Trevion Henderson. I have it on the rundown as Stevenson, but let me do a Henderson/Stevenson question here right now. What do you make of these ADPs? Trevion Henderson, running back 19 at the 404. Ramondre Stevenson, running back 28 at the 804. 4 rounds behind Henderson is where Stevenson's going right now, Doug.
So I have conflicting thoughts with this one. So of course, Josh McDaniels is the OC in New England and will probably continue to be until infinity, or who knows.
Right.
So if we look through McDaniel's history, he's always had a Kevin Falk, a James White. He's had that kind of running back, right? You don't draft someone like Henderson in the 2nd round to be that kind of running back, he's more than that. He's more than James White. He's more than that profile of running back that McDaniels has had over these years. Boy, I don't know though. You see how rough the transition, and I don't even really know what to chalk Henderson's year up to. When he knew he was the guy, he was big play every week. He was bonkers sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it wasn't because he wasn't used to the committee role, because he obviously wasn't used to he should have been used to the committee role. I'm sure that's what they told him when they brought him in here. You're going to be sharing the load probably with Stevenson, and if we bring in somebody else. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think it's too big of a gap right now. I think we have to assume that New England wants to continue in Stevenson in the quasi early down role, and I think what they would love is for Stevenson to be like a plus version of LeGarrette Blount, and they would like Henderson to be a plus version of James White. Whether that happens or not is another story, but I think it's too big of a gap between the two right now.
Yeah, so for me, I lean towards Henderson. Beg your pardon. I lean towards Stevenson over Henderson at this point with how this is shaping up. I want to touch on Chuba Hubbard and the Panthers real quick. Dowdle expected to be moving on, Doug, and Hubbard's ADP is running back 35 at the 10:02. Jonathan Brooks has now re-entered the conversation. He's running back 53 at the 15:04. I've heard more than a few people tell me that Brooks is a guy to watch out for in that Carolina backfield this year. I just think of that contract that Hubbard's being paid, and they can't really move on from him right now in it. I don't know if they want to. Running back 35 seems pretty special to me at the 10:02 for Hubbard. And then if it is just Brooks, being the this year's Dowdle, I'll invest in him in the 15th round as well.
Yeah,
I think both these guys are nice targets for me in best ball drafts.
I completely agree. I completely expect Dowdle to move on, unfortunately, because I think that was a good fit for him. I'm not sure what happened at the end of the season, but and you could see in that last game that Hubbard was starting to basically assert himself as let's say the primary back there. Mm-hmm. As for going forward to 2026, let's put it this way: I don't know of any running back that has overcome 2 ACL tears in the same knee. I want to love Brooks. I'll probably take him at RB 53. I think is what you said. Yeah. I'll take him there, but I'm going to bet a lot more on Hubbard for 2026 than I will Brooks.
Yeah, 100%. Brooks is simply a value, high ceiling lottery ticket play for me, but it's a lottery ticket I want to buy. Yep. I want to skip over receivers. Maybe we may or may not have time. I don't know. But I want to get into tight ends here because this goes back to our Arizona Cardinals discussion. Trey McBride right now is the tight end 1. And to Brock Bowers' credit, he has narrowed the gap. In the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament ADP, McBride 107, Brock Bowers now at the 109. So there has been a Bowers shift up in that. The question here for you is the Cardinals were among one of the most pass-heavy teams, probably the pass-heaviest team in the NFL last year. I don't know if that continues. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. And I'm willing to bet that the real Michael Wilson is closer to what we saw in 2023 and 2024 rather than what we saw in 2025. McBride, I mentioned this on the show last night. McBride had his first 3 years in the league, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. Last year, 11 touchdowns. And he got a massive amount of passing volume. I have been fading him based on his ADP. I don't want to be in business with him when I have to pay that high a price. And I also have to allow for, the Cardinals didn't have their top 4 running backs for multiple times last season where they had to throw. I wonder if this is just staring me in the face right now that Arizona wasn't just this passing monolith. They had to pass because they didn't have any running backs, right? And so at that point, I'm kind of like, I think I want to be out on McBride. I'm probably going to be out on Harrison again. I'm probably going to be out on Wilson, given how high he's been going. I think there is so much evidence here pointing towards a heavy regression to the mean coming for Arizona this year when they shouldn't be out their top 3 running backs or 4 running backs or whatever it was. We should see a much better concentration on the ground game. We'll see what Mike LaFleur does. Mike, his brother Matt, once he took over in Green Bay, there was a much bigger emphasis put on the ground game there. We could see the same thing in Arizona with Connor, Trey Benson, and maybe somebody else there as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I'm hoping to do with the Huddle this spring and summer is to put up a lot of graphs, a lot of charts, a lot of graphs. And I would love to see, one of the things I would love to see is how much of Arizona's production came after they were down 2 scores.
Mm-hmm.
And because it seemed like they were almost always in a 14-0 hole or a 17-3 hole or something along those lines. And then it was Michael Wilson, 2 catches, 26 yards to, holy my God, it's 6 catches and 87 yards on a touchdown. And wait, he's got three targets and 3 passes. And then here comes Trey McBride with 10 catches for 114 yards and a score. Mm-hmm. So I think we're crazy if we're expecting a repeat for McBride for this upcoming year, because I don't think just what you laid out. The running backs have to stay healthier. You would think you'd have to think Arizona's going to put more in their offensive line into its offensive line, more balance. Does that mean I won't take Trey McBride number one or tight end one? I'm not there yet. I had McBride as a pretty clear tight end one for me this summer ahead of Bowers. Now it probably would be more of a coin toss. If you're asking me February 12th, it's more of a coin toss for me at this point, because I think Kubiak means more to Bowers than Will Fuller means to McBride. So yeah, I want to believe, to answer the question that we posed an hour and a half ago or so. I think Michael Wilson's was a better receiver than he was in 23 and 24. Or I think he was a better receiver than he was allowed to be in those years. I also think that Drew Petzing, I don't think that Petzing understood how to use Harrison, for example. And so when you're not having to target your number 4 overall pick, then you can throw all day to your tight end. So anyway, to answer your question about him being a target or a fade, he's a fade for me for now at his price.
What do you do with a guy like Tucker Kraft, who is coming off a torn ACL right now at the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament? Kraft is being selected as tight end 6 at the 507. Does that strike you as too high for a guy that, again, we think he's going to be ready week 1, but we don't know?
Yeah, that's the highest I would take him. And that's only because of the timing of his injury. If his timing of injury was the same as George Kittle's, who we might get to, I would say absolutely not. But I think the timing of his injury was probably late October, early November, somewhere in there.
It was the Panthers game. I remember that because I was at that game. It was super depressing as a Packers fan.
Yeah, I bet.
That happened. That was November 2nd.
November 2nd. So I know we're talking about a 2-month difference, but 2 months in an ACL recovery is a big deal. 2-month head start, at least, over another time. I'm sorry. And then you have Kittle with his Achilles. But anyway, that's the highest I would take him, is tight end 6.
You mentioned Kittle. There's much more of a discount on him. Right now, tight end 15 at the 906. And I know he wants to be back for week 1. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. I do think Kittle is kind of an alien a little bit, so maybe he does recover faster. But he's going behind the likes of Dalton Kincaid, Juwan Johnson, Brenton Strange. He's basically going right next to Dallas Goddard, beg your pardon. George Kittle, tight end 15 in the 9th round. Doug Orth, target or fade?
Okay, I like him at that price. Now, here's the thing. I was on Colby Conway's Fantasy Spin show here last week.
He came on right after me.
Yes.
Right after I was on, yeah.
And he asked for a bold prediction, and I said my bold prediction was I didn't think that Kittle would be himself all of next year, and that Jake Tonjes, restricted free agent Jake Tonjes, would be a top 12 tight end. So I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I can't ignore that Kittle is a value at tight end 15. I also can't ignore the history of Achilles injuries. So I wouldn't have a problem going with both, actually.
Last question for you tonight. Which ADP do you like better for these two quarterbacks?
Okay.
Drake May, quarterback 2 at 407. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback 12 at 806. Basically 4 rounds separating them. Quarterback 2 for May, quarterback 12 for Mahomes. May in the mid 4th, Mahomes in the mid 8th. Things to consider. Mahomes, coming off the torn ACL, May having a tougher schedule this year, not really knowing what the Chiefs offense, what kind of state they're going to be in, whether Mahomes is going to have Kelsey, and then whether New England's going to have Diggs or Hunter Henry. So the more things change, the more they change, I guess, is how to put it here. But the ADP, May or Mahomes, you have to pick one that you like better.
I'm going to side with Mahomes, and a lot of that has to do with the expected difficulty, higher difficulty of New England's schedule. I think that's going to play a role. I'm not sure that New England's going to add much to the sporting cast to make May better. So I think any improvement he makes is going to come from self-improvement, not from being lifted by a potential new teammate type of thing. Mahomes, we're talking about an ACL. Again, not the greatest injury to be coming back from, but he should be okay. He should be okay, close to himself around week 1, week 2. And then the other part of the reason I would lean Mahomes is because I get how I get to build my team otherwise.
That's a great point too. Absolutely. So, yeah. You're not building around him. He's just an ancillary piece that you can add later. Great point. Right. A lot of great points from you, Doug, tonight. This was a lot of fun. It always is. At Doug Orth on X, the Huddle, FF Today, fantasy points for your off-season projects that you're working on for those outlets. Tell the viewers / listeners what they can expect from you.
Yeah, so we're gonna have some meetings with. I'm gonna have some meetings with employees here this weekend. I'm gonna have some meetings with upper management here within probably next month or so. Be on the lookout for a lot of content. I talked about some charts and tables and whatnot. I think they'll be the tip of the iceberg. I plan on pumping out some draft profiles for most of the content should be on the Huddle moving forward. First of all,
okay, that's good.
So I plan on, between me and hopefully a couple other writers, I would hope to have at least 40 draft profiles, maybe even closer to 60. But we'll get there when we get there. I plan on pumping out a lot of those. We'll have some mock drafts as well, I'm sure. But I'm looking forward to I, like you and like everybody else there, I'm looking forward to what management is going to allow me to do, because I do have a lot of ideas that I want to push out there. And it's, as we all know, Balky, it comes down to how much money we have to do these things. So
Yep, totally get it. It. And everything that you're churning out, we can just follow and get the posts at Doug Orth on X, right? Usually linked to your own stuff.
I post most of my stuff there. I'm also at Doug Orth, the same handle on Blue Sky as well.
Oh, excellent. Good to know. I got to follow you on Blue Sky. I don't think I do. I'm going to do that right after the show ends tonight. Doug, this was always a pleasure. Thank you so much for hopping aboard, and keep up the great work. Best of luck this offseason in all of your ventures. And I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to see in Pros versus Joes come July, August again this year. That'll be a lot of fun.
I sure hope so. I've got to make up. I don't have to make up for anything. I had a good team, but again, I have position completely wiped out, and we can talk about that another time. But
it happens to the best of us.
Yes, it does.
That I know. Doug, be good, man. We'll talk with you again real soon.
You as well. Thank you.
That is Doug Orth, ladies and gentlemen, at Doug Orth on X. That's going to complete our show tonight. I want to thank Doug for hopping aboard tonight. A reminder, we'll be back at 7 o'clock next Thursday for the next episode of FFPC Insider Access. Don't forget, Dynasty and Empire Orphan teams, and Never Too Early Best Ball, Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball tournaments available at myffpc.com, as well as the Big Gorilla and the Baby Gorilla. Check that out, myffpc.com. That is where to go, myffpc.com. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. No High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tomorrow. We did it last night with myself, Farrell Elliott, and Steven Yergalos. And we will be live on this show next Thursday at 7. We'll be live next Friday on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour with Big Gorilla League champion Bob Hogan. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. For Doug Orth, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access. Thanks for watching, everybody.